Hey there, welcome to our AP Legal Zone podcast, brought to you by AP Lawyers. We are your top fix for all weekly law updates, including family, immigration, wills, and estates law. Just a friendly reminder, we are not your lawyers, and everything contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as legal advice. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about our new episodes.
Hello, I'm Angela Princewill, and I have Sherine Abdi here with me today, as usual, and we will be talking about paternity agreements. It's going to be short and sweet. Sherine, can you tell us what paternity agreements are?
So paternity agreements are really agreements that are made between persons who are not spouses and did not cohabitate, but who are parents of a child and who have agreed between them and have agreed to the payment of support and other expenses for the child.
Yes, so that's exactly what it is. So podcast over. No, but seriously. So the way this is a provision under the Family Law Act that just really allows binding orders for support to be entered into. So for people that cohabit, for example, or with spouses, they would ordinarily enter into a separation agreement, and part of that would include the support provisions. However, that's not appropriate, right? For people that never live together, people that are not spouses and never live together, but they still have a child. And if you want to make sure that your support, you have a support order that's enforceable, you need to have it and you don't want to go to court.
Yeah.
This is a way to deal with it. So generally what I like to do is I would even include a parenting plan, because Sherine, as you know, all the time, child support really deals with parenting really affects child support, the child support amount that should be paid, right? So for me, it's just like, okay, we're not doing a separation agreement, but I'm going to include a parenting plan. And as part of that, I'm going to include this, support, child support provisions. And the benefit of that is it's just pretty much as enforceable as though it were a court order. So if you fail to follow those, whatever is in the agreement, then, someone can bring you to court and actually register the order and have it enforced that way. Now, Sherine, I know you're familiar with Section 59 of the Act, which is where, paternity agreements are talked about. And I know you've done this for your clients as well. Do you find it interesting, like reading this section in 2022 and it's still, 2021. Okay, I'm ahead of myself, guys. It's December, okay? The year is almost over. I'm in 2022 mode. But do you find it interesting that it still says a man and a woman who are not spouses?
Exactly. I have to say, the law is a little slow in changing.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I'm entirely surprised. Do I think that we need to make some changes? Of course.
So does this, what I'm wondering, is this provision only meant to maybe deal with biological parents? Like, I haven't done a lot of research and there's not a lot of case law around paternity
biological
agreements.
Parents or same-sex gendered parents, like it would still technically
right, because
apply.
it just says a man and a woman, the payment of expenses for the child. It could be for the payment of expenses for prenatal care or birth, for support of the child, or darkly funeral expenses. So yeah, I don't see how same-sex parents would not be able to rely on a paternity agreement to enforce support. It doesn't really make sense to me, but
I agree.
no one's taking the courts up on this, and so this is one of those like tucked away sections of of the law that no one's really had to challenge. Probably there's not a lot of conflict there. And the truth is, as opposed to, comprehensive separation agreements where we're dealing with a whole lot of issues, a lot of times when you're dealing with child support is so black and white. Like there are conflicts sometimes, but there's not a lot of room for conflict. There really shouldn't be, in my opinion.
From a legal perspective, yes. From an emotional perspective, All the time there's conflict.
I know. I have, I mean, yeah, I have had to use this at times when, if there's reasonable arrangements being made for the child that's not in accordance with the guidelines, and I want it reflected in an agreement. And again, for me, the goal is to make sure I articulate the parenting time so that it doesn't appear as though, someone's underpaying child support. I also want to articulate if it's the actually under the guidelines. I want to make that clear. If it's income being imputed, I want to make it clear. And if it's not the guideline amount and and there's been reasonable arrangements made, I want to articulate it, because as I always say, you can agree to things orally, but if one person changes them, people can recollect things differently. And so if we have it written, it takes away like that confusion, right?
Oh, for sure. Especially, when someone is dealing with retroactive support down the line, you had a verbal agreement, but sometimes you need to express those terms in that form.
I feel like I actually saw somewhere, I believe, that it's an oral, like a paternity agreement could be an oral agreement. Please don't do that. Like, no, it's if you're both not an agreement on the exact on what you agree to, then you have a problem. So chances are if you're in court, then there's no agreement, right? And also it's worthwhile having as well if you want to make sure that the other person is conceding parentage, right? If it's the mother actually I shouldn't even think about it in terms of the biological parents, but if it's like two partners and you want to make sure that one person wants to make sure that it's clear that they are a parent, this is a good way to also do that, because you can acknowledge parentage as part of the paternity agreement. So this is not one that we get to use often. I would say the bulk of our practice is separation agreements. But for those that are wondering, we never lived together, we're not spouses, we're just dating and we happen to have a child together. What can I do? Well, now you can get a paternity agreement done.
Yeah, especially if you're amicable. Like, a lot of times people think they just automatically have to go to court. You can get those same arrangements being made, on consent between both parties, get a written agreement. And the nice part about it is if someone defaults on those support provisions, you can enforce it as a court order.
Yes. So, true to our word, we kept it short and sweet. And that's your primer on paternity agreement. Until next time, it's bye for now.
Thanks for listening and joining us in the AP Legal Zone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more episodes by searching AP Legal Zone on anywhere you watch podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast today so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about any new episodes.